coffee berry borer and coffee leaf rust workshop, mainly focused on Kauai, commercial coffee growers of Kauai, as well as backyard growers. And this is a PowerPoint presentation from Andrea Kawabata. I made some changes, so I will try to explain thoroughly. So today's agenda is some intro and basics on CBB, coffee berry borer, and coffee leaf rust that I will be presenting in a maybe 15 to 20 minutes. Then Craig Kanasige will be presenting on status update of CBB, as well as CLR and its island-wide distribution. Then Andrea Kawabata will be presenting IPM recommendation for CBB and CLR. And at the end, we will have a question and answer session for around 30 minutes. So coffee berry borer, it's endemic to Africa, but it's found nearly everywhere on the coffee growing regions around the world. And here in Hawaii, it's present in all the island, all the major islands except Molokai. It's the very worst coffee insect pest in the world, very difficult to control once it gets into the berry. And coffee is the main host of CBB. CBB cannot survive or reproduce, complete its life cycle in other alternate hosts. Although it has been reported from many different alternate hosts, as you might want to go through this CTHAR website link, you will see many alternate hosts of coffee berry borer. But the fact is they cannot complete their life cycle and reproduce. Only coffee is the host that CBB complete its life cycle, multiplies, and do everything we don't want it. So as you can see the photos, here you can see that, so normally what we think is coffee berry borer will bore, when the cherries are in the ripening stage at color break. So they will attack coffee cherries. So as you can see here, the coffee berry borer is trying to go inside. You can see half of the coffee berry body is in outside. And in some other cases, you will see the hole in the bottom end. This is all they enter through the bottom end, distal and floral end, whatever you call, yeah. Sometimes you see one hole, sometimes you see two holes. One hole means one coffee berry borer went inside, two means two. So that two will go inside, make a galleries. I will try to explain a little bit later. So this, what we think is they will attack only nearly ripening berries. So, but you can see they can attack this immature berries as also, like a green berries also. So this is to show that this, so that they can also attack green berries as well. Just showing dissecting a berry, one with the coffee berry borer inside, one without. I think this is the same, just a dissection. And as you can see, the holes after they enter. So this is the egg of CBB. They enter, they make a gallery and lay the eggs. And this one you will see some adults as well as frass. And the larva, and this one is a completely damaged coffee bean. So lots of frass and some adults coming out from the bean. So this is a general identification of coffee berry borer. The scientific name is Hypothenemus hempi. In the coffee field or coffee orchard, we account normally 3 ambrosia beetles. A black twig borer is another coffee pest which attacks twigs of pencil thickness. Another pest, tropical nut borer. Only once in a while you will find tropical nut borer in the infesting of coffee berries, and another is coffee berry borer. So normally, how do we differentiate between these 3 ambrosia beetle, which we generally find in the coffee field? So what I do is normally I look for the hairs on the abdomen. So one with the long filamentous hair, this needs to be observed through the microscope. One with the long filamentous hair is black twig borer. One similar, a little bit shorter shorter, but the flattened. It's called spatulate setae. It's a tropical nut burr, and this is a coffee berry borer, which is comparatively smallest among these three, and this has a pointed, sticking out, short, pointed, and thick, sticking out here in the abdomen. So this is the main way that I use to differentiate different ambrosia beetles in the coffee. And if we need to confirm if CBB is there around, so this needs to be done. This is a general life cycle of a coffee berry borer. As I said, they bore into the coffee bean through the distal end of the berry, and so the damage is normally caused by tunneling in and making gallery, not by feeding. So they don't damage by feeding the internal contents of the coffee berry. They tunnel through and they make a gallery and they put eggs, they lay eggs. So they make a gallery, they inoculate ambrosia fungus in the galleries. That will be food for their progenies, their babies. So the eggs lay into larvae, and then pupae, and they emerge as an adult. So normally they enter the seed after 90 to 100 days after blooming, which nearly is a color breaking stage of the berries. Development from egg to adult will take around a month to 2 months. So female lays egg 30 to 120 eggs, in average 74 eggs. So the warmer temperature will hasten the development. It will fasten the life cycle. So reproduction, this is one of the main feature of CBB. It's also called haplodiploidy. The fertile female will lay egg. The fertile egg will hatch into female, and the infertile egg will hatch into male. So their male to male ratio is 10:1. They are female biased. It's mostly governed by the bacterial symbionts they have in their gut. So they are haplodiploidy. So fertile. So normally the main problem or feature of this insect is most of them are female. So and in the bin, the siblings will mate. And as you can see, the females are bigger and the males are smaller. Then only females can come out and fly to get to again reinfested new coffee beans. Males cannot fly. So normally all the beetles tend to accumulate, including this CBB. They like a shady condition, shady cold condition, and mostly you will find them in the surrounding berries and near their founding females. Females are attracted in the fermenting waste products, waste produced by the females, and as I said, alcoholic substances. That's why we apply mixture of ethanol and methanol in the CBB traps. They are poor flight. They have a poor flight ability. Normally they fly only around 50 feet, but it's reported they can also fly up to 213 feet. They normally come out in a dry, followed by the rain, or in the high humidity events. So movement of CBB. So movement of the long distance movement is aided by the wind because they cannot fly a long distance. And also their movement is aided by mostly human, from one place to another, like one island to another, one farm to another is mostly aided by us humans, farmers, visitors, and the workers through infested cherries, raisins, parchment, and green beans. Also, they can easily stuck in our shoes, our clothing, supplies when we move the equipments, and also in the vehicles, whatever we use in the farms and go to some other farm or some other place, and plants and soil. So this is a coffee berry borer that we already have and making lots of problem here in Kauai. So then we have now new coffee pest disease, coffee leaf rust disease, Hemilia vastatrix, just confirmed around 3 months ago. And I will try to explain just a general introduction of how it looks like and what is its general biology. So these are the photos. So the upper surface of the coffee leaf, and this is the lower surface of the coffee leaf. So first observable symptoms are small, irregular pale yellow spots on the upper surface of the leaf. These leaf spots will grow in size, and at that point, if you turn the leaf surface, you will find yellow to orange color powdery spores. It's also called iridospores. So it will appear in the underside of the leaf. The fungus sporulates from the stomata, this opening for the photosynthetic activity. So rather than breaking through the epithelium, in some other rust disease, the spores, or they have a different kinds of, the life cycle of rust disease is a little bit complex, but for coffee leaf rust, it's kind of a little bit simple in the hot and humid area. So for the coffee leaf rust, it infects through the stomata opening, and the fungal hyphae grows. And again, the sporulates from the opening of the stomata. So unlike other coffee leaf rust, it produces iridospores, and some other coffee leaf rust, they produce pustules. So you will see the coffee leaf rust on the top, like a very thin dust. But here in coffee leaf rust, we'll see this spores sticking in the tissue, leaf tissue. So these sporulation will advance, and at some point, these spots will browning, and these leaf tissue will die. It's also called necrosis. So with intensification of coffee leaf rust, whole leaf die and fall down. So again, coffee leaf rust normally starts from the bottom, because the local infestation is from soil, the spores present in the soil, and it gets to the bottom of the leaf, bottom leaf of the plant through splashing, and it starts from the bottom. And normally it tends to concentrate in the leaf margin, because the leaf margin is the place where the spore gets first. But it can appear in anywhere in the plant when the spread is from the other area. So spore comes in, it lands in the, wherever it lands, it can produce symptoms. So as I said, infected leaf drops, just leaving the branches, the main trunk and the branches at the severe condition. Spore dispersal. So spore dispersal can be both due to wind and rains. As I said, splashing rain is the important means of local dispersal, and the long range dispersal is primarily due to wind. And movement across the island, ocean, desert, and mountain is mainly due to human intervention. Infection and sporulation. For spores to germinate, it needs moisture in the leaf, moisture in terms of rain or heavy dew, and there should be a moisture for around 24 to 48 hours to germinate spores. High humidity alone is not enough for the spore to germinate. So normally infection occurs in the rainy season. If you have two rainy periods, there will be 2 peaks of rust incidents in your coffee farm. So it directly correlates with the rainy season of the area, the incidence of coffee leaf rust. So it takes about 30 days to sporulate from the point of infection, and the lesions will enlarge over the period of 2 to 3 weeks. So it's around 2 months of time to infect your coffee field and to see some damage caused by coffee leaf rust. A single lesion will produce 4 to 6 spore crops. That what I understood with 4 to 6 spore crops means the lesion will The infected lesion will produce a crop, infest another site, again, forms a spore, likewise, it's 6 times. One lesion will produce 4 to 6 times spore crops in a period of 3 to 5 times. So the infection, that means infection is continuous. And each spore crop produces approximately 75,000 spores. So that means in a 3 to 5 months, it produces more than 300,000 spores, that resulting a secondary explosion of the rust disease. So it looks like we are around this stage in some location here on island. So just to give some idea how do we distinguish between coffee leaf rust and another common disease in coffee, which is Cercospora leaf spot. And this photo, and this is from Lisa Keith's lab from USDA P Park at Hilo. So as you can see, we explain the leaf spot is irregular and small in the coffee leaf spot. That's too small. The leaf spot is around 2 to 4 millimeter in diameter here in coffee leaf rust, but it's irregular. And in case of Cercospora leaf spot, the leaf spot can be smaller than the coffee leaf spot. Coffee leaf rust is 2 to 4 millimeter here. It's less than 3 millimeter all the time. So, but it is circular. Another thing is you will get the brown spot in the middle, as you can see here, brown spot in the middle surrounded by the yellow circle outside. If you turn the leaf, you will see sporulation in terms of yellow to orange color, dust like rust. And if you turn the leaves with the Cercospora leaf spot, you will see some damage caused by the fungus, and you will see the loss of tissue where the spot is there. So this is a general, different between coffee leaf rust and Cercospora leaf spot. One is irregular, a little bit larger leaves, yellow spot in the leaf. Another is circular, it's a little bit smaller. The center is brown, surrounded by yellow color. And if you see the underside of the leaf, you have a rust spores, but not in the Cercospora leaf spot, with some dead tissue and removal of tissue from in the spotty area. So if we need to move the coffee plant parts, berry, so there is a inter-island Hawaii Department of Quarantine regulation. The link is there. You can go in your free time and read. It's a little bit lengthy, but there is if you need to move unprocessed, untreated coffee beans, plant parts, soil, we need to get the inspection done and get permit from the Hawaii Department of Ag to move inter-island. So to minimize the risks caused by these two coffee pests, prevention is the only way to do. Do not transport any untreated berries, coffee plants, seeds, leaves, soil, and other farm supplies to Hawaii from other countries. And when you move from one island to another, same thing. Follow USDA, Hawaii Department of Ag, plant quarantine rules and regulation. And if traveling, so now we have a coffee leaf rust, yeah. So leaf clothings, footwear, hat, and other supplies in the country when exposed or potentially exposed to pests and diseases not found in Hawaii. Shower, wash clothing, or other materials potentially exposed to rust prior to arrival in the USA. So another thing is we can also move around with us hitchhiking in our clothing and cups and in berries also. With that, I finished my presentation. We will go back to back another 2 presentations. So next one is coming from Craig Kanesige from Hawaii Department of Ag, and he will be talking on status report and the island-wide distribution of CBP as well as CLR. And thank you. Craig, whenever you are ready. Craig, are you muted? Okay, I can.
Oh, no. Is that okay? You can hear me? Okay.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay. Yeah. I'm gonna do a short presentation on rapid response to coffee bearer borer invasion on Kauai. Um, okay. The distribution of coffee bearer borer in Hawaii. Coffee bearer borer was first confirmed to be established by Department of Agriculture on September 2nd, 2010 on the Big Island. It was then found on Oahu in 2014, Maui 2016, and August of 2020. Also on Lanai. In September 3rd, 2020, CBB was turned into Department of Ag by KISC, who received a call from the 643 Pest hotline from a resident farming coffee in Kalaheo. And the beetle was sent to Oahu and confirmed to be coffee bearer borer by entomologist Janice Matsunaga. And over the course of 10 years, CBB has spread to all major Hawaii islands. For rapid response, Department of Ag and CTHAR, College of Tropical Agriculture and Human Resources staff conducted a site visit the day after the CBB sample was received. The next day, delivering surveys were conducted by the Department of Ag and CTHAR staff in the Kalaheo, Kauai properties, and the surrounding properties to determine the extent of infestation. Okay. After finding infested coffee trees, with the permission of the property owners, we stripped trees of the infested coffee cherries, then bagged and froze them. For delivering surveys, the results were 7 properties were found to be infested with coffee bearer borer in the Kalaheo Kauai areas within a radius of a half mile. The farthest property from Kalaheo Kauai was found in the Kauai Highlands above Kupuila, about 1.3 miles away. The response consisted of a collaborative effort between Hawaii Department of Ag, College of Tropical Agriculture and Human Resources, Kauai Invasive Species Committee, and Kauai Coffee and property owners. From September 3rd, 2020 to October 2021, CBB has spread from Numila and Ere to Kalaheo, all the way to Moloa, Kilauea. These are the current CBB sites on Kauai. It's all the yellow triangles. In summary, how could have we been more proactive in monitoring CBB throughout Kauai? Collaboration between agencies is important due to lack of manpower and resources within individual agencies. And for trapping for CBB, traps should be set up when coffee is green on the trees The lures could also attract beetles from other locations. Therefore, traps to be set up away from coffee fields, about 200 meters to 400 meters away, and put up along roads with coffee trees away from main coffee fields. You can see that the spread of CVB did not happen overnight. Our surveys now indicate that coffee bearer board is established at different locations on Kauai. Integrated pest management must be used to control this infestation. My next presentation is the rapid response to coffee leaf rust invasion on Kauai. Okay, coffee leaf rust was first found at Haiku, Maui on October 2020. It was reported by a CTHAR extension agent who in turn was referred to Hawaii Department of Ag personnel on Maui. By October 28, agencies from the USDA and National Identification Services in Maryland and UHCTAR confirmed it was coffee leaf rust. On June 28, 2021, this is for Kauai, a commercial grower from Kilauea on Kauai reported coffee leaf rust. Since then, it has been found throughout the Hawaiian Islands. On Kauai, it is at Kalaheo, Puhi, the Upper Wailua area, and Kilauea on Kauai. This fungus, Familia vestatrix, is a very economically devastating disease of coffee. It results in loss of leaves and causes twig dieback and possibly death of trees. In summary, Hawaii Department of Ag implemented their surveys for CLR for 5 months before it was reported by a commercial coffee grower. It finally appeared because weather had perfect conditions for the spores to inoculate and mature to infect coffee leaves. You can see that the spread of CLR is dependent on the weather and did not just happen overnight. Control of coffee leaf rust needs to be done with good integrated pest management practices. Communication with coffee extension agent for information is important. And we thank Andrea, who will give the next speech on integrated pest management of coffee in Hawaii. And we thank Dr. Massey and Janice and everyone else that is associated with the coffee companies. Thank you.
Thank you, Craig. We have our Andrea Kawabata speaking on CBB and CRR IPM recommendation. Andrea, please.
Okay. Hi, everyone. Let me pull this up. All right, so I'll be speaking on CBB and CLR management recommendations. And again, I'd like to acknowledge and thank our funding agencies as well as the industry for helping us to put on the extension and outreach for both CBB and CLR. So some of the topics that I'll go over is going to be the CBB integrated pest management recommendations. Something very important, even with CLR being on all islands, is the prevention of its spread. Then I'll go into the recommendations for coffee leaf rust. Then I'll try and pull everything together into a summary for both CBB and CLR management together. And throughout the presentation, I'll have various resources and links that will be available. And I will share this presentation in PDF with Roshan. So I'll start off with CBB. The current recommendations come from a 2020 document that was created, and the different sections are found at the hawaiicoffeeed.com website that I've created over the years to house coffee information. The information within the recommendations are research-based, and a lot of it now has come from Hawaii and not just from other countries. We recognize that because of ongoing research, the information will be continuously evolving, and so we will have updates to the IPM recommendations throughout the years. And we've already gone through, I think, about 4 iterations of these recommendations. And because every farm is a little different from each other, they are going to be fairly general. And so if you have questions pertaining to your farm in particular, please let me know, and I can kind of help you through that to tailor it more towards your farm instead of general. So this link for the IP47 is the 2020 document. And again, the PDF will have these clickable links so that it can take you to the information. So field sanitation is by far the most important control measure that you can do on the farm. And basically at the end of the harvest, we're removing all the young berries, mature berries, as well as raisined berries to reduce the amount of breeding sites there are available to CBB and to physically remove CBB populations from the field. And in this way, we are trying to start off the new season with as low an infestation as possible. So this is what an end of season strip pick might look like. This is actually from a farm. So you can see all stages of coffee that was picked off the trees to hopefully create a gap where there is no coffee on the trees. And this is prior to pruning. After farms prune, a lot of times we do have several different flowerings that take place. Typically following a dry period, rain will induce flowering. And sometimes the flowering comes out really early on and ahead of the main crop. And so early season berry removal is also really important to starting a coffee season with as low an infestation as possible. And the reason for this berry removal is that CBB that remains in the field because of berries that were inadvertently forgotten on the trees or remain on the ground, CBB will come out of these remaining berries in the field, go into the early coffee that develops from these early flowerings. And then as it produces new generations within these early berries, those CBB then just walk over and fly over to your main crop and infect the main crop. So removing the berries that form from early flowerings helps to, again, physically remove CBB from the farm. And as we've seen with the research that looks at the economics, starting your coffee season with as low an infestation as possible helps to also increase farm profit. So traps can be used as a monitoring tool. We do not recommend its use as a mass trapping and to try and control CBB. It is best used at the end of the harvest season and during the strip pick, when CBB that remains in the field, if they're looking for a home but there's no berries on the tree, the next best thing is for them to end up in the traps. They get attracted to the methanol and ethanol, fall into the trap, and then drown in the soapy water in the container. It's important to always service these traps and to remove them from the field after the first major flowering. Just remember that the coffee is going to be more attractive to CBB once the berries develop on the trees. And if hanging traps in the trees where there are berries, CBB is likely to then be attracted to those trees, and you tend to have higher infestation with traps that are in trees with berries. So remove them as soon as you start seeing your major flowering. If you've got stumped coffee, the traps can remain in those stumped fields just to try and collect and kill CBB because there are no berries in those stumped blocks. Other methods of field monitoring include the 30 tree sampling. And that sheet on the right-hand side is what we use to tally infested berries, as well as to make calculations on the percent infestation, percent AB alive, percent CD, and to determine when to begin spraying to help us identify our percent infestation level. And then when we do the dissection of the green berries, we are helping to determine CBB positioning, as well as CBB's vulnerability to Bavaria sprays. And so when doing the CBB dissections, CBB in the AB position are vulnerable to Bavaria sprays, whereas once they go into the CD position, they are damaging the bean that is not reversible, and they are highly protected from the Bavaria sprays. Over the course of 3 seasons, we did the 30 tree sampling in Kona at our research station, and we looked at the percent AB as well as the percent CD on the berries that we dissected. And so the green lines are the AB positioning, and then the blue lines are going to be the CD position. And this is over the course of 3 seasons. And we see a couple of things just by this chart alone. And that is that in the first half of the year, we see that there's an increase of CBB in this AB alive position. And remember, AB means that CBB can be contacted and killed by Bavaria. We also see a little increase in AB positioning during the harvest season as well. So when we kind of look at an average and trend of AB and CD positioning, what we see is in the first half of the year, somewhere from the month of May and prior, CBB tend to be in high percentages in the AB positioning. And then as the berries mature, they migrate into the seed, they start to bore in there, and we see a drop in AB positioning and an increase in CD positioning. And so again, once they're in CD positioning, it's very difficult to kill the beetles with Bavaria. And so it's really important for growers to front load the season with the end of season strip pick, the early season berry removal, as well as the Bavaria sprays somewhere before the summer months. And in that sense, we're able to kill as many CBB in that AB position before they head into the CD position where the sprays are not effective. So research on the economics and the decisions to spray or not to spray suggests that spraying on a sampling threshold is just slightly more profitable than spraying on a set schedule. A combination or a hybrid system of using sampling and calendar spray scheduled sprays can be more profitable, but that the research is still needed to determine that. Spraying at least every 3 weeks is really important, as well as making sure that our application of Bavaria is when CBB is in the AB position to kill a high percentage of the beetles. Moving on to coffee leaf rust, it's found on all the different islands. CBB actually is not yet found on Molokai, although coffee leaf rust is there. But yeah, everywhere, including Kauai on down to the Big Island, we do have coffee leaf rust, unfortunately. And the importance of this disease, like Roshan was mentioning, was that it does cause the leaves to defoliate. You need leaves to support berries. So during high infestation levels of CLR, we see yield losses. And then when it's not managed properly, we see also sometimes tree losses in heavy infection. So although CLR is found on every island, it is not found on every farm. So it's really important that we help to prevent its spread from farm to farm. HDOA does have quarantine regulations for coffee and coffee materials moving inter-island, as well as any kind of coffee materials and coffee plants and propagative materials coming into the island. So we need to abide by those quarantine regulations. If you are heading out to a farm or coming back from a farm, consider yourself infested and disinfect yourself before and after visiting any coffee sites. You can decontaminate your hands, gloves, tools, any kind of clothing, footwear, hats that may have come into contact with the spores. And you can use 70% alcohol or a freshly prepared 10% solution of bleach to decontaminate with and to kill the spores. If you are spraying bleach on any kind of metal tools, be sure to oil it afterwards or it will corrode. If you are taking a truck or some kind of vehicle, you can park outside of the farm, or if it does go into a farm with coffee leaf rust, you'll want to wash it down with soapy water before you move on to the next farm. And heat helps to kill the spores, so field wash clothing and anything that's washable, please wash it in detergent and hot water, and if possible, you can dry it with high heat. So early detection is really critical for the management of coffee leaf rust. All the varieties that we grow here in Hawaii are susceptible to CLR. And so we need to be monitoring for this disease so we catch it early on in its infection and establishment. And this level is under 5% for infection, in which our contact fungicides or protectant fungicides will help us to control coffee leaf rust. At this point, we do not have true systemics that help us to control coffee leaf rust. And so most of the fungicides are going to be these contact or protectant fungicides that only kill the spores and do not kill the lesions and spots on the leaves. So catching it early helps us to better manage this disease. And Roshan had kind of mentioned this in his presentation. It takes about 30 days from a spore to land on the underside of the leaf to infect the leaf through the stomata or the small opening on the bottom of the leaf. The lesion is created, and then the spores come back out through those stomata or openings on the bottom of the leaf, and wind will help to carry the spores to nearby leaves. Splashing water as well as human and animal transport also help to move spores around. So things happen really quickly with coffee leaf rust, and they can spread very easily. In Kona, we had been following a stand of feral coffee since December. And on December 9, we barely saw a couple of spots there circled in red, and those were coffee leaf rust spots. And over the course of 7 weeks, you can see how quickly those spots have progressed in size, as well as the number of spots on that particular leaf. So those are pictures of the same leaf over time. And so within 7 weeks, you're seeing this particular leaf maybe 40% covered by lesions. So really important to catch things early to be able to manage coffee leaf rust. That particular stand, you can see how quickly defoliation also occurred on those trees within 3.5 months. So when looking for coffee leaf rust, our recommendations is, check all your trees. You just don't know where coffee leaf rust is going to show up because it is airborne. It could land anywhere on the leaves. And when there are the perfect conditions and rain or irrigation that is touching those leaves and allows coffee leaf rust spores to germinate, they can show up anywhere. And so understanding that areas such as the bottom third of the canopy is where we tend to find coffee leaf rust showing up. You may want to focus your attention on that bottom third of the trees when you're checking your trees. We also see coffee leaf rust showing up in areas where there's overstory and a lot of shade, which helps to increase humidity and to keep dew and other water there on the leaves. We see coffee leaf rust along roadsides where vehicles traverse and tend to spread it a little easier from site to site, where pigs or other animals tend to frequent or cross through and within a farm, as well as where workers and visitors might park or stop and take photos or have their lunches, or where they could potentially transport coffee leaf rust spores from one place to the other. If you're unsure of what coffee leaf rust looks like and you think you may have found it, you can take clear photos, and the contact information for submitting those photos are at that CLR monitoring publication at the link below. You can send them to either the Department of Agriculture or to myself, and we can help you identify what those spots are. When it comes to managing coffee leaf rust, field sanitation is really important. Controlling weeds, pulling out young coffee seedlings that you do not need in that farm, as well as controlling ground cover height. That helps to reduce the amount of humidity at the bottom area of the trees, helps to prevent coffee leaf rust spores from splashing back up from weeds, coffee seedlings, and ground cover back to the undersides of the leaves on coffee, where they can reinfect the coffee leaves. Keeping the trees healthy as well as the soil healthy are also very important for the coffee trees to tolerate coffee leaf rust infection. And so at the beginning of the season, around the time of flowering, taking leaf and soil samples can help growers determine the types and amounts of fertilizers required to keep the trees healthy. Knowing the type of fertilization practice, type of fertilizer, and the amount of fertilizer during different ages and stages of coffee development will also help to keep the trees healthy and to help support the berry load on the trees. Addressing coffee root knot nematode, which damages the root system, and the trees suffer from a lack of water and nutrient uptake. That can be addressed by replanting with grafted trees on Liberica rootstock that help to tolerate nematode infestation. And also including compost and mulches as well as ground covers to keep the soil healthy. That will help. As a whole, we have 4 different methods of pruning, and that includes stumping, stumping with a nurse vertical, the Kona style or selective pruning, as well as hedging, which we tend to see on mechanically harvested farms. And so keeping on top of pruning and desuckering is also important in helping trees to tolerate coffee leaf rust and to remain healthy. So pruning helps farms remove old and less productive verticals, as well as excessive branches. Helps us to physically remove coffee leaf rust infected materials. Helps to increase airflow and sunlight penetration into the tree canopy. Helps us to improve spray coverage so that Bavaria, as well as the fungicides that are being used, can get into the canopy and on the undersides of the leaves and fruit. Stumping, as well as hedging, can help us to reduce labor, as well as to encourage and increase the amount of new growth to rejuvenate the trees and get them healthier. And pruning can also help us improve yields, which will help to offset some of the costs of the different fungicides and insecticides used. We encourage growers to spray before pruning to kill CBV or CLR, so we're not spreading them further throughout the farm. And then when removing coffee leaf rust infected materials, you can either bury small amounts under at least 6 inches of compact soil or under a pile of compost materials. You can double bag it, or you can tarp and cover small amounts to kill CLR spores. Keep them contained for at least 6 weeks to kill those spores. And as much as possible, please do not take your CLR infected materials off site, and that will help us to reduce the spread. Fungicides have been very helpful for growers to control coffee leaf rust, but again, CLR has to be found early on and then treated properly for these fungicide treatments to work well for the grower. And we highly encourage growers to rotate the use of different fungicides in different frac groups, and that helps us to prevent pesticide resistance by coffee leaf rust. And so you can see the highlighted 3rd column, and it lists the different fungicides and the different frac groups, and it is also color coded. to help us understand which fungicide we could use and rotate to next. This listing does help understand which products are certified organic. They will have an asterisk next to its name, provides a clickable link to their label, the REI for re-entry, if it's compatible with Botanigard or Mycotrol. If not, its rates for coffee leaf rust, and some estimated costs. So we are continuing to update this list, and it can be found at the spray publication on the link below. And so it's really important to contact CLR in order to kill the spores with contact fungicides that are listed on the table on the left. In green, we have the product Preaxorzemium. It is a translaminar fungicide. So it doesn't help us to kill the lesions, but it does still help us to kill the spores and to protect the leaves from new infection for up to 21 days. And in some cases, possibly more, especially with good coverage and good weather. And again, I cannot reiterate enough that finding CLR early on in infection is really important, and it is the most critical part of being able to manage this disease. So when levels are higher than 5%, in order to bring back down the level to get maintenance, get management on coffee leaf rust, spraying and then pruning and destroying infected leaves and materials will help to do this. But once the farm is heavily infected, doing that much removal can be detrimental to your yields and to the production on your trees. And so going through the harvest season is probably going to be your best bet. And then considering stump pruning and destruction of those materials to regain control on CLR is probably going to be the next step. So understanding the efficacy of the different products, as well as the best timing of applications, rotation that works best, and the best rates for CLR control is still needed to understand with research. If you are an organic farmer, this is a potential rotation of the different products that you might consider. You could start off with Oxidate 2.0 and then move on to a copper-based product, and then rotate between that product and Serenator Double Nickel. We do not recommend the overuse of Oxidate, as it kills good and bad fungi and bacteria. So, use this product only as necessary. If you're including Preaxorzemium into your rotation of fungicides, you can start off with Oxidate and then move on to Preaxorzemium. Remember that there are protocols that we need to follow when using this product under the Section 18 emergency exemption. So the second application of Preaxorzemium must be at least 30 days after the first application and no closer than 45 days from harvest. So you can only use up to 2 applications per year. And so you will need to then rotate out to either Serenator Double Nickel and the copper-based products. Some spray tips that we've learned through coffee leaf rust, and we wanted to share with you. Again, always read and follow the label. The label is the law, and be sure to cover up with the proper PPEs that are listed on the product label to protect yourself as well as your applicators. Whenever spraying any kind of pesticide, it's a good practice to calibrate your sprayer so that you know how much water you're using per acre, as a lot of these pesticide rates are according to acreage that you are going to be spraying. Calculate the proper rate of product per gallon of water so that you are not over applying, wasting money, or using rates outside of the label rate. When CLR is initially found, research has shown that using a sprayer with lower pressure helps to reduce the spread of coffee leaf rust, especially with that initial application of fungicides. And adding a surfactant to the fungicides can help you get better coverage so that you get better efficacy with the different products that you're spraying with. Removing lower and excessive branches on the trees can help you get better spray penetration and to help you get under the leaves where the CLR spores reside. Slowing your walking or driving speed can help you get better coverage, so you can get better efficacy with the fungicides. And then switching out to different types of sprayers or different nozzles, such as a dual head nozzle tip, as you see in the photo, can help you also to get better spray coverage. And if you're changing any of your spray applicators, any of your equipment, if you're spraying trees that have been recently stumped or much larger trees, please remember to recalibrate your sprayer so that you know how much water that you need to apply per acre. So farmers are combining different products to help reduce the amount of times that they need to get into their farm and spray. Oxidate and Serenade can be mixed. Many of the Bavaria and coffee leaf rust pesticides, as well as foliar fertilizers, can also be mixed unless they are noted below or on the product label. Remember, the label is a law, so be sure to read through it before using any pesticide product. The products that you do not want to be mixing is going to be Oxidate and Bavaria or Preaxor and Bavaria. Those two products will kill the Bavaria spores. And again, if the product label does specify do not combine this product, please do not. Do not use also any products that are not labeled for coffee and not approved by the Hawaii Department of Agriculture for use in Hawaii. One of the common questions I get is how much product do I add per gallon of water? And so I've created an Excel sheet and introduced this particular Excel sheet to growers who participated in a sprayer calibration field day. And it helps to calculate the amount of water per amount of product per gallon of water, and then also the amount of product per tankful, depending on the size of the tank. So what I would need to know from a grower is the different products that they plan to use. I can help them figure out the label rate for coffee leaf rust or coffee berry borer or other insect or pests on their crop. I'll need to know how many acres they plan on spraying. They should be calibrating their sprayer so that they know how many gallons of water per acre they're using to spray, or at least if they know the total gallons of water for the acreage that they plan on spraying. This Excel sheet will help to calculate out the amount of product per gallon of water. And in this case, it's a powder, so it's in ounces or grams. And then if I know how many gallons of water they will fill into their tank, this sheet will also help us determine how many ounces or grams of product per tank full. So it kind of takes out the confusion of calculations, but I still do need some of that information, particularly in those green cells. Just as a reminder, the Department of Agriculture has a CBB, as well as they will be coming out with a coffee leaf rust subsidy program. So in addition to the CBB program, growers can apply and get an annual reimbursement of 50% of the cost of fungicides that are approved by the department for this program. And they can turn in receipts up to $600 per acre with a cap of $6,000 per farm. And again, this is in addition to the CBB subsidy. So if you've already been spraying for coffee leaf rust, hang on to those original receipts. The potential start date of this subsidy program is November 1st. If you have any questions, you can contact Melanie Bandera, who is the coordinator of these programs. So kind of just to summarize and pull everything back together, since we don't farm based on CBB or just based on CLR, we're going to try and put all these different cultural practices together at a whole farm level. So I'm going to start off by summarizing that prevention of spread is critical to stop CBB as well as CLR from reaching farms that do not have it yet. And so we need to follow sanitation, disinfestation, as well as the Department of Ag's quarantine regulations. Continue to look for CBB and CLR and to monitor regularly throughout your entire farm. And keep in mind those areas that we tend to see CLR and CBB showing up more so, and that tends to be in areas of high traffic as well as shade. Because we're in the harvest, I'll kind of go through the harvest first. So at the end of the season, make sure you're strip picking, picking all ripe berries and raisins through the harvest, and that helps to remove any berries that may be infested by CBB. If you have CLR, continue to spray for it throughout the harvest. Most farmers are spraying at least every 2 to 3 weeks to maintain the level of CLR and to keep control. At the end of harvest, strip pick to remain all remaining coffee, which includes green berries, color break, ripe, and raisin berries at the end of the harvest. As the trees start to flower again next season, you may consider, and I would highly recommend, submitting a leaf as well as a soil sample to help determine the fertilizer or other amendment needs to keep trees healthy as well as your soils healthy. A lot of farmers only submit a soil sample, and it's really difficult for me to help determine your fertilizer needs. So submitting both the leaf and soil samples together will help me help you determine what the trees really need. Before pruning, please spray for CLR, and that way we kill the spores before moving any kind of pruned materials around. Prune to remove the infected leaves and branches, to rejuvenate the trees for tree health and to increase airflow, as well as decrease some of the shading from excessive branches and to improve spray coverage. As the new season comes around, monitor for CBB early on and spray when most of CBB are in this AB position. And we tend to see that is happening prior to the month of May. Monitor, keep a lookout and spray for CLR early in infection. Remember that level is under 5% for our contact fungicides to help us control and manage this disease. And make sure you're calibrating your sprayers, using the proper pesticides, proper rates for CLR as well as for CBB, following the frequency recommendations, as well as rotating between the different fungicides so that we avoid pesticide resistance. Desucker your trees throughout the season, control your weeds, pull out any coffee seedlings that you do not need in the farm. Continue to fertilize and to maintain good tree and soil health throughout the year. And as they become available, our long-term solution for coffee leaf rust is going to be planting with coffee leaf rust resistant varieties. So as you have a chance, please check out the hawaiicoffeeed.com website. It hosts all the information that we have currently for coffee leaf rust, coffee berry borer, ag events and announcements, and information on other pests and diseases that we have here in Hawaii. And if you head over to the coffee leaf rust tab and you kind of hover over it, we do have publications available in Spanish, Tagalog, and Ilocano. So, the information is there. If you cannot find it, please let me know. And if you need to get in touch with me, my contact information is there. And I thank you very much for joining us today. Back to you, Roshan.
Thank you, Andrea. So, question answer. So let me check chat box if there is a question. Okay, then. So yes, the floor is open for question answer. Either you can put the questions in the chat box, or you can unmute yourself and ask also. Scott.
Hello, yes,
Yes.
this is
Mhm.
Garden Island newspaper. So at last week's, Roshan, at last week's LFA webinar,
Mhm.
your experts said LFA eradication remains possible on Kauai. Is that the case with these coffee pests, or are they here to stay on the island?
Was that?
So Scott. So so eradication of coffee pest seems to be a little bit more difficult than LFA. So maybe Andrea, can you answer?
Yeah.
Yeah, please. Yeah.
Coffee berry borer and coffee leaf rust, to be very frank, are not going to be eradicatable.
Yeah, it's a small,
Maybe other
tiny
pests
pest.
will
Mhm.
be, yeah, but these are not going to be eradicatable, unfortunately.
Okay. Any other questions? Otherwise, I will ask one question to Andrea. Is there any research going on for screening CLR, coffee leaf rust, coffee varieties currently in Hawaii?
So USDA PBARC in Hilo, their researchers are working with the World Coffee Research to bring in different varieties. I know other individual coffee farms are going through the Department of Ag's quarantine and bringing in different varieties as well. What we need to be sure of is that these varieties are going to be resistant to rust that we have here in Hawaii, and that they maintain our high quality of cupping. We need to maintain quality to ensure that we get the high prices for our coffee. But the research is ongoing, and unfortunately it is slow because we still need to grow them out. The trees would need to be replicated. Cupping would need to be done as well, but it is in the process, so we can get materials out to growers.
Okay.
And to add, Roshan, people should remember that importing coffee plants for propagation from foreign sources is illegal from both a federal and state standpoint. So permits would be required. So what's happening is ARS is using micropropagation techniques to bring it in, which adds on a significant amount of time to for the process of screening and evaluating these varietals. And we're also waiting on research about CLR, which would determine what rust, more about the rust and what varieties are more susceptible and what varieties are more resistant. And the latest timeline for that information is December of this year.
Okay, thank you. I think in the chat box, Ben has also a question in this line. I think he's asking, when are we likely to be able to get the access to CLR, like a time frame to get the CLR resistant variety for planting? It's like a 2-3 years, maybe at least. Is there any time frame that we can get resistant
You're probably
varieties?
looking at least a few years to really get those replications going and to get the numbers. In the meantime, researchers are also looking at different fungicides that would be more systemic, and to help the growers that way to maintain their coffee trees through infection.
So I have some raised hands. How can I see the raise? Okay, again, Scott. Yes, go ahead. Scott or any.
That was my bad. I never lowered my hand in the first place. I apologize.
Okay, if not, then Ben,
Hey, I have a question for you regarding kind of movement of those resistant varietals in the future. On talking like Kauai based here, speaking with Clyde, and then also with Lance from Plant Quarantine. Last thing I heard about our quarantine shed in Lahui that would do that. It's out, it's not meeting requirements, it's out of commission, it's in disrepair as far as I was told, and there was no plans to either get it fixed or have the funds to get it repaired up to code. With all of this going down and hopefully preparing everything in the years to come, is there any plan to get that facility back up and running so then Kauai can be able to be on, par with the Big Island, which obviously kind of gets direct access to a lot of the varietals and other such things?
Hi, Ben.
Yes, yeah.
I'll have to make inquiries with the plant quarantine branch about the status of that, of the quarantine house over on Kauai. I was not aware of these situations, so I'll make inquiries and send answers to Roshan, and he can push it out to the participants here.
Okay.
Yeah, I'd appreciate that, and if you could
Thank you.
keep us all in the loop of when that's available, it'd be best.
Understood. Will do.
Thanks, Ben. Thanks, Darcy. Okay. Any other questions?
I have another one. if that's okay.
Sure. Go ahead.
You mentioned earlier on that possibly the Kauai Invasive Species Committee might have funding for like CBB traps and other things like this. Is there any other funding apart from cost of product in terms of like labor and other costs that are associated with the burden of CLR and CBB that we can get access to?
Okay, I would like Tiffany to answer this question. So basically, we have a CBB and CLR response team. Yeah. So what we do is we meet and we update on status. If somebody needs help to kind of remove the plants, if it is in a critical position like CBB near Kauai coffee, some backyard growers near Kauai coffee, then we try to remove those coffee plants, few from 6 to 10 for 20. If it is like hundreds of coffee, it's difficult for us to do the removing all the coffee trees as well. Yeah. So if it is in some critical points near the coffee farm, near the big coffee farm, somewhere around, then we try to get together and respond by stripping the infected berries, or in some cases we can, if the owner is agreeing with us to remove whole tree, we can do removing also, but it's in the small scale. We cannot do in a bigger scale. So, and other than that, with funding, so normally Andrea Kawabata is the one who has responsibility for the coffee pest statewide, and he has. So with me and Andrea, we will have some funding for coffee leaf frost monitoring and survey. Right, Andrea?
Yeah, I believe that's what you have for Kauai.
Yes. So
mine is all outreach.
There will be some funding for CLR survey and monitoring. If it's already in here, it will be monitoring. And apart from that, I think so KISS have funding for CBB as well as CR response. That's what we do with the help of KISS in our response team. If there is, Tiffany, you can speak. Oh, yes. Okay.
There you go. Ben, if you want to contact KISS, so just KISC, at hawaii.edu. We can work with you to see what capacity you need to survey your farm or do some monitoring and help provide some information if we can't help with the full capacity that you need, but to do some more in-person training on what can be done. But we can do a small amount of surveying and monitoring at different farms across the island. That's what we got the grant from the county of Kauai, is to help all the farmers with the initial surveying.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
I want you guys to be aware of crop insurance also. That is another way, because coffee leaf rust is covered under crop insurance if you have the coffee cherry policy. So you may want to take a look at that, because if you start having kind of, the losses due to that disease, it's covered. So at least you can get some insurance funding to cover that and to keep you going through the years until we have the replacement resistant varieties. And to kind of answer Bill's question also, this also pertains to crop insurance, that we're trying to work with risk management agency, part of the USDA, and we're trying to work with them to get the replacement of trees or the enhancement of the farm with grafted trees, for nematode tolerance, covered under crop insurance policies. Right now, it is not covered for the replacement or enhancement section, but hopefully we can get them to add that in. And so it'll help growers to offset the cost through crop insurance when they're starting to replant their trees, or if they need to stump their trees in order to get control of the disease.
Thank you, Andrea. More questions? Thank you, Tiffany. So I have one question, Andrea. So we rotate fungicide, right? Normally. So that means the coffee rust needs a resistant management. It's already showing resistant to some of the fungicide. Is that correct?
No, we don't want it to become
Mhm.
resistant to any
Okay.
of the fungicides. We have such limited tools right now that if we allow it to become resistant and then think about, oh, we need to rotate, we're too
Mhm.
late. So we are encouraging growers to rotate their products now so that we do not get into that problem of resistance.
Okay. So one more questions, maybe. So coffee leaf rust is already here in around 4 locations around the island. So that means the inoculum is already here, and it's just a matter of time to spread around. So what do you suggest for the other coffee growers? Do they start spraying, like a preventative spraying at some point of time? Do you recommend them to spray right now?
That isn't an
just-
option for them,
Mhm.
right? Because it's a cost. It's a
Mhm.
cost to their farm. But if they're not spraying, they really should be looking
Survey.
all the time, looking,
Mhm.
right? And that can be a cost too. So if it makes sense for them to start spraying fungicides as a preventative, and then monitoring occasionally to see if CLR is showing up, and to continue if they need to continue the sprays. That really is a farm management decision, because there is a cost to spraying or just to the monitoring for CLR. In wet weather, that's when we are likely to see CLR showing up more so and presenting those lesions on the leaves. If it remains dry, it is not a conducive environment for coffee leaf rust to be germinating. So it may be a little more difficult to find the spots, and it may help to slow the spread if it is present. But if growers choose to spray preventatively, that is going to be their choice. I cannot exactly recommend it because it is a cost, and there's no guarantee that they're going to stop it. So
if they will spray, it will be contact fungicide.
Yes, we only have contact fungicides basically. And because we're in the harvest season right now, growers
Mhm.
cannot use Preaxor.
So oxidate and Preaxor is systemic, right?
No,
No? Okay.
oxidate is a contact
Mhm.
fungicide and Preaxor is a translaminar fungicide. So it gets absorbed into the leaf and it helps to protect the leaf, but it is not translocated throughout the plant.
So I have another questions. If it might be a little bit. Is there any app, weather-related app that is made for coffee leaf rust, and it will allow you to take this decision to spray or not to spray? I know it's not used in Hawaii, or it's not available in Hawaii, but anywhere else that we are looking for right now.
Roshan, the
Yes.
difficulty with apps, and just as a cautionary, just because you have dry conditions on most of your farm doesn't mean you may not have the micro conditions that are good for coffee leaf rust, since all you need is the appropriate humidity on the leaf surface. So there are a lot of management things that you can do to help decreases the chances that you'll have CLR becoming symptomatic on your farm, which would be keeping up with weed growths. So you don't have your weeds brushing up on the lower levels of your branches on your trees, eliminating some of the shade, increasing the amount of airflow. All of these things can help with preventing CLR, but it's all micro condition based. And as such, you have to have, for making these monitoring decisions, and I've asked a lot of the bigger farms if they would be willing to share some of their weather data with the department. What you really need is a comprehensive system of sensors throughout your coffee farm in order to be able to make informed decisions on when conditions are reaching the point where you need to be concerned. And there's some of these programs that PBARC was looking at over in for coffee berry borer, but one of the sensors that they were missing is actually a leaf humidity, a leaf moisture content sensor, which would actually be one of the more useful tools that would exist for the kind of program that you're looking at. So, and these aren't necessarily, and so there's an app, they're looking at expanding the usage, but it hasn't reached the point where the funding has become available for privatization and taking it online.
Thank you. There is a question on the chat. Are there maps where one can go view online to where CLR has been found? If so, no. So is it, if it is for Kauai, no, it cannot be viewed online. You need to contact our group, CBB and CLR response, Kauai CBB and CLR response team. And I am the I coordinate this group, so you can contact me for the updates on CLR as well as CBB incidents on Kauai. Any question? I think it looks like Ben Feet raised hand. Ben.
Thanks again. I have a question. This year's HCA conference, we had Emilio Lopez Diaz talk about coffee leaf rust in El Salvador and Brazil, and that they moved to skeleton pruning, which they've had a lot of success with. I know a couple of farmer friends that have been experimenting a little with alternative pruning techniques, but I wondered if there's anyone here, or that you know of anyone that's had better luck with changing pruning techniques as a management tool, and if there's anyone that can share any information beyond kind of the average pruning techniques.
Yeah, so some of the farms have gone to stump pruning instead because it helps to control coffee berry borer. And then now with coffee leaf rust, it kind of helps them set back to near zero for infestation. And they've reduced the number of verticals per tree, leaving no more than 3. Reduce the time before they re-stump the trees again. So instead of going for 4 years, they've gone down to either 3 or 2, depending on if their first year production is high or not. With the skeleton pruning, we've done something similar without coffee leaf rust infection. And basically it was a hand hedged trees. So similar to what the growers at Kauai Coffee would be doing with machines, we were hand hedging and removing most of the laterals on the tree and topping the tree to increase the amount of vegetation that was coming out. So you get a really good first year production out of that new growth, but you have to remember that it gets really bushy. So once you cut a lateral, it pushes out like 10, 20 new sublaterals that just intertwine and crisscross and just make this tree so bushy that spray penetration is really difficult. Harvest is really difficult. And so you have to either do a lot of desuckering and multiple desuckerings through the season to, open up that tree canopy, or you have a hard time with CBB. And I can imagine that you would have a hard time with coffee leaf rust. What they do in El Salvador, I'm not really certain, if they really hand desucker those trees heavily, or if they're using also different products that we don't have available here in Hawaii to help them maintain control on coffee leaf rust. But those are my experiences anyway in trying to hand hedge.
Okay, awesome. Thanks, Andrea.
Thank you very